Whenever Penny and I watch a TV show done by Chuck Lorre Productions, like Big Bang Theory or Young Sheldon, we've learned to pause the picture just as the credits finish. Thank God for DVRs. So we can read one of the producer's so-called vanity cards. If you don't stop the picture, it goes by just like that, and there's way too much to read. Now, the vanity card is usually a little hilarious soliloquy, but occasionally it's rather touching and poignant. The other night it was a poem. Matt, if you'd advance the slide. Modernity's scary, antiquity's worse. Can't go forward, can't reverse. So here's a plan to ease your unknowing. Ride the horse in the direction it's going. Words to live by, right? I looked it up. It's a poem written by somebody named Rajat Singh. And on this first Sunday of 2018, I think those words are particularly pertinent. Modernity's scary. Antiquity's worse. Can't go forward, can't reverse. So here's a plan to ease your unknowing. Ride the horse in the direction it's going. You know, I've reached that age now where I have more years behind me than ahead of me. And Penny is working really hard to keep me from becoming one of those old retired men who prattles on incessantly about the good old days and yells at the neighbor kids to get off my lawn. The world has changed so much, and church life has changed so much that I could easily settle down into a world of nostalgia and just park myself in the easy chair of what used to be. At our Donahue family hootenanny after Christmas, some of us who were making music and are getting rather long in the tooth found it hard to play and sing some of the songs because of all the memories that bubbled up amidst the music. As we sang, "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" in beautiful four-part harmony, by the way, I just couldn't look at the portrait of my dad hanging on the wall. I knew my cousins were thinking about their dad, and we were all thinking about our grandparents and days when life was simpler and possibilities seemed endless. So I sympathize with those who say they want to make America great again. Like them, I would love to return to a time when my world was centered almost exclusively in family, church, and community. Yet at the same time, I doubt many of my African American friends would be keen on returning to those days of my childhood in the Deep South when all white schools like I attended got most of the resources and the all black schools got all the leftovers. I doubt any of my LGBT friends would want to return to my childhood days when they had to hide their identities and pretend to be something they were not every day of every year. I doubt any of the women that I know would want to return to my childhood days when gender roles were etched in stone and sexual harassment was the price women paid for the privilege of earning a paycheck significantly less than their male coworkers. You see, when you start talking about making something great like it was before, you have to engage in selective memory. Nostalgia has definite shortcomings. When the Israelites got hungry out in the wilderness, they engaged in selective memory about their former lives in Egypt. They said, "Oh, we sat by the flesh pots and we ate our fill of bread," and they whined, "We don't like it out here in the wilderness. Moses, we bet you brought us out here just so we could die of starvation." Now, never mind that they were enslaved back in Egypt. Never mind that Pharaoh had ordered the annihilation of their newborn sons. No, in their minds now, everything was moonlight and roses back there in Egypt. Making Egypt great again actually meant the Israelites going back to slavery. The year 2018 won't be great by trying to return to a past that's dead and gone, a past that had some wonderful times as well as some awful times. 2018 will only be great if we live the life we're given now. It'd be great if we could take some risks and take advantage of the opportunities that come around to us. Many years ago, when my daughters were in high school, my family and I took a trip to Edinburgh, Scotland. And one day we were studying the bus schedule, trying to figure out which route was going to take us back to our hotel, and we just couldn't make any sense of it, when along came a bus, and it stopped, and the doors opened, and my wife said, "Well, let's just get on this one." I said, "Well, we don't know where it's going." She said, "Meh," and got on the bus. My daughters tooled along right behind her, so what was I going to do? I got on the bus too. And you know, that bus started taking us around to Edinburgh, to all the non-touristy places. We saw parts of that town that we would have never seen otherwise. Plus, we struck up a conversation with a young lady named Elaine, I'll never forget her name, who was an absolute delight to talk to. I wish I could tell you from the pulpit the information she told us about Scottish weddings. But suffice it to say, it has something to do with what a Scotsman wears under his kilt. If you want the full quote, see me after church. And after a while, that bus driver stopped and pointed to our hotel just a few blocks away. Now, we would have missed that whole experience if we hadn't taken the risk of grabbing an opportunity right in front of us. Why are we so afraid to live the life that's here? Oh, sure, it's an unknown. Sure, it can be scary. But if we really believe we are held in the arms of God, what do we have to be afraid of? Think about old Peter in today's reading from Matthew 14. Jesus invited him to take a risk, grab hold of a possibility, step into a unique experience by stepping out of a boat onto the Sea of Galilee and walking to Jesus. And he was doing great. Until he took his eyes off of Jesus. When he focused on the strong wind whirling around him, his rational, buttoned-down, pragmatic mind took over, and he thought to himself, "This is nuts. What was I thinking?" And he sank beneath the waves like the wreck of the Hesperus. And about the time he was going under for the third time, Jesus snatched him from a watery grave and scolded, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Why indeed? He doubted because the whole thing was crazy. He doubted because this sort of thing just isn't done. He doubted because decent people who were raised right don't grab hold of foolish possibilities. He doubted because society frowns on folks who will not succumb to living their lives in quiet desperation like the rest of us. If 2018 is going to be great, not great again, but great, you'll need to step out of the boat now and then. Take a risk now and then. Even do something that looks downright foolish now and then. When Penny and I flew back from Georgia last Sunday, we took an Uber from the airport. And it turns out our driver was from Russia. I don't mean just culturally Russian. He was a real live Russian. And most of you know how fascinated I am by Russia and Russian culture, so we had a wonderful chat together. His English was excellent, so we figured he'd been here for a couple of years or so, but he told us he'd only been here about 6 months. I asked, "So what brought you to the States?" And he said, I kid you not, "The American dream." And I thought, could I have done what he did? Could I have dreamed a dream and picked up my life and transplanted it to another country 6,000 miles away? Heck, it was scary enough for me moving from Georgia to the wilds of Illinois. Yet he had taken the risk. He had stepped out of the boat. He chose to live the life he had been given right now. Near the end of Thornton Wilder's famous play, Our Town, one of the characters, a young lady named Emily, reflects on the fleeting nature of life, and she says, "Oh, earth, you're too wonderful for anybody to realize you." And then she turns to the character called the stage manager and asks, "Do any human beings realize life while they live it, every minute?" And the stage manager replies, "No, The saints and poets, maybe, they do some. Well, in 2018, I want to live more like those saints and poets. Oh, I know I'll never realize life while I live it every minute, but at least I can risk it more often than I do now. With all the changes coming to my life this year, I need to risk it. And how about you? Are you facing forward or are you facing backwards? Just remember, modernity's scary. Antiquity's worse. Can't go forward, can't reverse. So here's a plan to ease your unknowing. Ride the horse in the direction it's going.